And okay, so welcome everybody. I've been asked by Liz, the chair, to step in. She's at our Scottish U3A AGM, and our vice chairs are on holiday as well. So I think everybody probably knows, but I'm Peter Taylor, a committee member, and I'm really pleased to welcome Andrea Fisher, who works for the Children's Wood in North Kelvin Meadow as their Schools and Community Engagement Officer. Who's going to tell us about the whole history of the meadow and the work she does to encourage people to go outdoors and to work with outdoor learning for schools and nurseries. So Andrea, straight over to you.
Thank you, Peter. That was a very good introduction. I think you could just continue talking. It sounded very, very well summarized. So yes, I do work in the Children's Wood and the North Kelvin Meadow. It's a place I met some of you, which is also a place that a lot of people don't know it's there. So it's just kind of, it's a bit of a green space on a map and not necessarily a place people walk by. And I hadn't really living right across the road from Queen Margaret Drive. So it's just the other side of Queen Margaret Drive on the botanical side, Botanic Garden side near the Happy Park. So it's kind of tucked away a little bit and you don't necessarily walk by. However, I think the last year made us walk by many things we'd never walked by. So maybe you have come across it in the last year, if not before. So the land used to be Red Blaze, a football pitch and running track, and what is now the Children's Wood side, which has just got more trees than the meadow side. So it's a connected side, but one side is just more of a woodlands, miniature woodlands. Used to have a tennis court on it. And the tennis court was neglected before the football pitches. So that's why we have more trees on that side. And they're all self-seeded birches and willow, a lot of them. However, we've been trying to encourage biodiversity and we have planted lots of other species and have also supported other species growing, just again, self-seeded, brought along by squirrels or birds. So that's what the land looks like. So I hope you can all have a look and visit it and maybe bump into me like some of you did. I have been working for the charity. The Children's Wood is a charity now and has been for, I think, since 2015. I've been working since 2015-16. First of all, I volunteered and then I became a paid member of staff. And our main aim really is to get people out, to get people out into the outdoors, into a green space, to leave the classrooms, to leave the house, to find a garden if you don't have a garden yourself, and just spend a bit more time outside, become physically active and happy and healthier in a green space, really. A lot of the schools and nurseries here, the inner city schools, nurseries, haven't really got anything much green, and therefore we provide them with a green space that they can do their outdoor learning in. I also do forest school, which is, I've done some training. It's a sort of level 1, 2, 3 open college course in forest school, which is an environmental, go out into nature and learn and have fun. And it's curriculum based. A lot of the stuff we teach and base it on experience and hands-on experience with children who might not have the opportunity to go out and do anything as risky as firelighting and working with hammers and nails and tools and climbing trees and just exploring. Really, it's very it's child-centered, and it provides a lot of learning and fun. For those who've grown up in Glasgow or the West End, you might have actually played football on the land or done some running or had sports days or similar, because I fairly frequently bump into people who sort of arrive and they sort of look around and look a bit bewildered and say, hold on, I think I've been here before, but it looked different. And then they say, oh yeah, my school was there and this was a running track, wasn't it? And so people remember from 20, 30, 40 years ago having having been and having played football, and now they return and realize it is actually still there, but is transformed and it's kind of not there anymore. So it's quite nice to bump into people and they realize that they know the place but don't, and see the transformation and see how nice and green it is now. So I do know my husband and his brother, they used to play there. They always played football, so you just looked for a football pitch, and one of them was that one. So it didn't have any floodlights any longer in the 80s and 90s, but it was still a football pitch that you could just kick a ball on. So that's what they did, and that's what still happened then. But the history is like, if you go on our website, and Peter, you don't need to switch on it because you need to look all the different into the different sections. The earliest entry is an 1822 map of the West End and of the land, which just looks like it's an ancient map. And in your own time later on, whenever, you can look it up. It's quite a nice website we've got. Somebody put a lot of effort, and I think it was a university challenge. So they made a nice website for us a few years ago, and it's quite nice. So there's a map of the land, which is just an open space. There's nothing there. And there's another map from 1939, and it says Glasgow City Council had bought the Children's Wood and the Meadow for £4,800 in 1939. So that's another map you can see. And then it goes through history that in 1940s, in the Second World War, the BBC was protected by, there was some kind of balloon sitting on the land, and there were some Polish makeshift hats in what is now, or what used to be, the tennis courts, the Children's Wood area. So there's records of that. And in 1946, the local schools started to use the grounds for recreation and sports. So there was Kelvin Street, which was the local school, in case any one of you knew it or went there. Or and then there was Garioch Public School and Shakespeare Junior School, all from around very near the meadow where it is now, and it's always been. And then the school turned into the Stowe College not that long ago, and then now it is the North Kelvin College. So it's right across the road, and on the other side it's Kelburn Street, a school for special needs children. It's just the corner of it. So we kind of share a bit of the fencing, and their grounds are absolutely amazing, Kelburn School grounds, and they have done a lot of work with our help as well to turn their garden into a more child-friendly play area. And we've gone in and helped them and put up a tarp, and we've run some fire sessions on their land and encouraged and enabled them to do much more outdoor education for themselves, or outdoor play with the children. But we also create a bit of a green corridor, the back of their land and the back of our land, which is our main compost area, creates a sort of green belt that leads over to Garioch Road. And if you cross that, you're down by the river. So it's kind of a bit of a green wildlife corridor. We like to see it as such. So that's the kind of surrounding buildings. There's a scout hut across the road as well. Those people use our land too. So 1972, a school closed, and the school grounds weren't, or the school sports grounds weren't used any longer. So the meadow and the tennis court was sort of neglected and just sort of left to its own device, and fell into disrepair. So we've got what is now our shed in Clouston, just off Clouston Street, is a very colourful thing to look at. So a local artist went to the local schools and asked for pictures, and so all the certain kids, I don't know if it was a competition maybe, drew some pictures of wildlife and of things that they connect with the meadow, and she pulled together the nicest or the most matching or fitting drawings into one big mural. So it's all on the big long shed that is there, and used to be the maintenance, the sort of janitor's maintenance storage building, which is still from years and years ago. We've done it up and done it up again, and it is quite an interesting, smelly, dark, damp place now, but we have got some funding to extend it into a toilet, hopefully, and some running water and electricity. We have no water or electricity on the land, which kind of holds us back a bit in terms of being able to water our plants or go to the toilet. The college lets us go to the toilet, which is lovely of them. So we all tie the whole community into our work and our efforts to use the land in the best way we can. There's still 6 floodlights, like sort of really massive, big, long iron or metal floodlights sitting on the land, which used to be the floodlights for the running track and the football pitch then. And they kind of remind you of past times, of when it was something else than it is now. So it's kind of, they blend in a little bit, and we've turned one into a fairy home. So it's got different levels. On one side, it's open, you can look into it, and there's a switch, which is like a light switch. People just sort of add things to the land because they think that is a nice thing for kids to see or to do. Or so some of the stuff we have to sort of take out again, because too much donations is sometimes a little bit too much, and people start just dumping stuff on them, especially in lockdown when there were so many pots and pans you all of a sudden realize you don't need, and then you ended up, there's no charity shops, there's no Dawson dump, so therefore I'm sure the Meadow will love it. So we have to be quite we have to balance out what then looks like a bit of a dump, or which is really quite handy to have. So there's a little fairy house, you can look for it. It's in one of the floodlights, and it's got a light switch, so kids come and switch on the Meadow. So then the switch on is the play, and we're here, switch, and they go and running and start playing. There's lots of little fairy doors, and there's a bit of sand in it, and it's a bit magical. It's quite nice and well done. So that's in one of the floodlights, and the other floodlights is right in the center, has got the bins all around it, and tells you then please not to put food waste into the bins. We've had a bit of a problem with rats, of course, and so we really encourage people to take it, to take ownership, to look after the place as a community, and not just as me arriving every morning and tidying up. And I think it makes a difference. This is the difference to any other park. Botanical Gardens is right around the corner, or the Kelvin Grove Park. We are a community, and everyone seems to be happy to arrive early and walk the dog, and then do some tidying up and looking after the place, because they want it to look nice, and they want it to be theirs, and they want their kids to go, and therefore there is a sort of tight-knit community. There's a tight-knit dog community, as well as a meadow with the raised beds on it. And there's also the children's wood with all of our children's activities. So we encourage the children to come back with their mums and dads and grannies and granddads and their dogs when they know where it is. Because again, a lot of the kids say, I didn't know it was here. I've never come across it. So we've had classes arriving and saying, how can I bring my mum? How can I show my mum? So I said, just bring her. There's no gates. You can always come. And they say, but I don't know where I am. I don't know where we are. So then we've taken chalk and made arrows all the way back to school, so they could then take their grannies and mums back the other way to find it again. So it is so much of a, wanting to include everyone, and being G20 and not G12, there might not be as many opportunities in terms of big gardens or places to go to, or even going on a hike into the Highlands or whatever. So it's a very mixed community, which is nice to support and bring together, which has been another aim really for us, to make everything low-key, accessible, and not costing anything. So we don't ever charge for any of our community events or any of our outdoor learning, because I get my funding, my job is funded by the Robertson Trust. And we have employed someone who looks after funding and who is just looking into funding all the time for us to make things free, and for it to not be a barrier. So that's that's a little bit of the history. Then in 1996, there were the first kind of plans to build on the land. So the city council owned the land and wanted to make money from it, of course, because it was worth a lot of money being in the West End. However, it is already so busy with housing, and it's a bit of a concrete jungle, really. We've always found it really important to kind of get a bit of a balance in it, to keep some green spaces in amongst houses and for people who don't have gardens. So from 1996, plans were put out to the council, they were rejected, then new plans came out and they were rejected, and people realized if we don't do anything properly organized now in 1996 and onwards, we will lose the place to lots of houses and flats. So residents started to gather and to be wanting to make a difference, and met on the land and started to do a massive tidy and clean up. So there's some photos, I think, on the website again, of residents standing amongst 90 bin bags of rubbish, sofas and televisions, as you can imagine, after the place had just been neglected by the council. People start dumping stuff, and then if it's not tidied up, they'll just dump some more because it just is a dump. Then people were wary of it. They didn't like to go across it and walk across it, because the shed looked like something out of Trainspotting, and I think it was turning into some drinking and drug taking den, and people were talking about how it's a bit of a sort of dealing grounds for drugs and for dodgy characters, really. So people wanted to make a difference and wanted to change the image around to make it accessible and make it safe and into a happy green space for everyone to enjoy. So a local resident started the Compendium Trust to save the land and to stop housing or buildings being built on the whole of the land. So I think it was obviously before my time of living here, not before my time of being alive. But they apparently had a shop in Queen Margaret Drive. They brought out a weekly newspaper, maybe even. They looked after funding. They got a lot of funding actually together from the local people. So it was a massive movement towards or in support of the green space that it was. Really interesting. There's still people who were part of it then, who come to the meadow now. So they campaigned from 1998 until 2008, which then it was abandoned. There were talks about building on the fire. So there was a fire brigade based in Sander Street, which is now turned into flats. So opposite of that is the border to the Children's Wood and the tennis court. That's that side. And the tennis courts were going to be turned into flats, and the rest was going to be saved and stayed green. That was one plan, and that's shifted. And so there has been a constant shift between what the planners and developers were after and what the council wanted to sell and how they wanted to use it. In 2008, then the North Kelvin Meadow campaign took over from the Compendium Trust, which was abandoned then. And in 2011-12, the Children's Wood was formed, which is a sort of subgroup or a sub nowadays, a charity, but the North Kelvin Meadow was all of it, because quickly somebody needed to take the lead and to take over from the Compendium Trust, to not lose momentum and to hold on to the land and not lose it to the council selling it and being developed. So the Children's Wood started, and at one big, the head of all of it was Emily Katz, who lives right beside the meadow, and she's still very much involved. And she realized that if we want to make a difference and really want to overturn the Glasgow City Council's decision in building flats, we need to involve children in education. So children in education is our future. We need to get them on board or make it a strong point in winning the fight over the meadow and the developer. So the first things we'd done or was done then was started play groups. We started to gather people were keen to gather somewhere outside. They liked the outdoors, but not everyone had a car to go into some wild place outside of Glasgow. So green spaces were so needed within a city, really. And a bit of a sort of wild space where you could also climb trees and kick a ball and run around a bit wilder than in a very nice, but very restricted in what you can do botanical gardens, because you wouldn't want to damage the nice roses and the nice trees there, which everybody understands, but it's not easy to hold back a 5-year-old couple of boys or girls who just want to play fight and run around and swing from trees. So the meadow was always a little bit off this and a little bit wilder and a little bit more for the imagination of the children, and they could kind of do not anything and everything, but they were a bit more laid back about what could be done and what they were allowed to do. So we did start the play groups then, and we stressed the point that green spaces were so important for play, for leisure and for education. So from 2012 until 2016, there was a constant back and forth between the council wanting to sell it and almost selling it. And then we stepped in and had a big, massive campaign to save the land, to show them what great difference it can make to so many people. We involved the community, and we had mental health groups, and we had gardening going on, and so it was much more than just a toddler group. So we wanted to convince them to see that the land is so much, it's more worth than £1 million or something in the long run, because it would serve so many people, and it would be just so much more of value to the people, to the community. And because we had by this point the community on board, there were so many parts of the community supported us and helped out here and there, and were involved, that our case was gaining in strength and was made stronger by the people round about, but also by people who lived further away and inquired and said, how can we want to have a meadow and a children's wood as well? How can we do it? What did you do? How can we save our little green spot? So finally, it was saved in 2016. There was a massive hullabaloo over campaigning every day in George Square, even on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. There was always a group of campaigners with our little banners sitting in front of the chambers to convince the city that please don't sell the land. The community and Glasgow needs more green spaces. So it was saved, and we turned into a registered charity in 2015. And my job started in 2016, and this year we will hopefully absolutely finalize a 25-year lease, and we'll keep the land as it is and hopefully improve it and make it better and run it the way we have run it in the past 15 years or so. So that's the kind of the history of it and the way it developed from one thing to the next. The most important point we found was that it was just had never been built on. So it was always a green space, and it was always for recreation or for whatever happened in history, as the World War II or the BBC being right beside it, really. So it has a big, long history of supporting children in the community. So these days, we work. Our motto is get people out to enjoy the outdoors, to just relax and just charge your batteries and take your kids out, just gather, socialize. We allow barbecues, and we have recently, unfortunately, had to stop the fire. We had a fire pit, and for many years we had people, to start with, responsible people having little fires and having their children enjoy a sort of a special experience around a campfire in the city centre or the West End. But recently we've had so much damage with people, the lockdown being so busy, with people just having to be out first for one walk or something a day, and then people were allowed to be out and then start to gather. And the students are in a tricky really horrible situation, really, if you think about how they have to just sit in front of a screen like I do now. And I don't like to do it every day at all. Like nobody really wants to be a student in front of a screen doing nothing. So they then gathered in the meadow, and there was a lot of fires everywhere and a lot of damage done to the trees because people don't go out and get a bag of kindling and then buy a fire bowl and then lift the fire off the ground, don't, you know, for not leaving any trace and not damaging our land. So it just became a bit too much, and we had to step back from it, made the difficult decision, because we see so many of our strong supporters have very reasonable, happy fires with their mum and dads and uncle and aunts and children. So we had to say we can't no longer sustain this when there's so many people, or only a fraction of people not doing the right thing. So we've just stopped it. And it's been amazing how the community also pulled together and realized, yes, this is what we needed to do. And we've hardly had any fires at all, which is amazing when you see on sunny Saturdays and Sundays in Kelvin Grove Park, the riots vans have to be out, and horses and all sorts. And we come in the morning and find a very clean meadow that some dog walkers might have picked up after the people who did come the night before, but it is very, very limited, the amount of damage we see or antisocial behavior. It comes and goes in waves a little bit. We had a bit of a spell again, sort of often we have one in roundabout Halloween and Guy Fawkes night. And then of course, when there's any Rangers and Celtic, win or not win, we have sort of fireworks going off and people starting fires. But we've been very lucky, and I think it is because we are a community that self-polices the land. People step on the land and they see a fire, and they would actually go up and say, you don't do this. We don't allow this. Please, can you know, I get you some water, put the fire out, and or please be quiet. There's some children sleeping in this flat. And so I think there is it all makes it more of a community when people work hand in hand and actually like the land and want to look after it. So we've been very lucky that way. And we've had people from abroad and places across Scotland and England saying, we've tried this and it's just being trashed every night. And I know there's so many people have problems. And given we have no gates or no locks, we have really, I think, been very successful in what we've done and how we run the place. So apart from the schools and nursery and university, and we supported filming, the BBC was on the land. We had photo shoots for all sorts of outdoorsy, gardening-y things, or art shows and art displays and workshops and felting this and tree IDing and meadow flowers and foraging. And there's always people inquiring whether they can use the land or whether they can invite us to networking events. Or so it is kind of, it grows arms and legs. You do get in touch with so many other initiatives and groups and places. We obviously have got quite a nice website. I think that helps, and people get in touch and want to run something or want to help us or have suggestions or have heard about us and want to do the same thing. And then we go and do some outreach and visit them maybe. So we've just, it's just kind of covers, there's a huge network of, and you don't need to be so out. People always say, you're so outdoorsy. And I think, well, I'm just kind of like to be outside. I don't climb a Monroe every Saturday and Sunday. And I don't go on mighty mountain bike, funny hikes. And I just see the importance of outdoor learning as having experienced that myself. Being a child, we were kind of kicked out, or we ran out into the woods and didn't return until we were really hungry and dirty. And I'm sure that's sort of, I see people nodding. I guess that's some of our shared lives. But I think kids nowadays, especially after the year we've seen, but I mean in general, in the city centre, they're very, very sort of restricted in what they are able to do. And I think it's not only because people are too paranoid about the stranger danger or the you know, what lurks around the corner. I think it is a lot of it is the traffic and the cars and the danger that is from that. There's just living in the city is different to living somewhere outside, or to living in the 40s and 50s when the city wasn't so much a city. Children do go to the meadow, and we encourage them from the class and the schoolwork we do. We say, there's never a lock. If you live nearby, ask your mum if you can come. And if you're stuck, or if you have a problem, or just ask a dog walker. There's always a dog walker on the land. And then a little girl piped up and said, yeah, I was stuck in the treehouse and I did ask a dog walker and he did carry me down. So it is all kind of a bit connected, and we like the fact that there will be always somebody on the land that will actually give you a hand or help you, or kind of overlooks or oversees, or, you know, hey, don't break that branch, you know, that tree is alive, you know that. And so I think that is what helps, that we're all kind of in it together, and we've seen it throughout the last however many years. So that's great. So we've done a lot of community events as well over the years, which have sort of obviously not been on in the last year. This year, having started the lease, we realized doing something as we had to do to save the land, and to just, there's no tomorrow. We just had to absolutely have one event after the next to show numbers and to show how we can do this. There is so much need and hunger for being outside, doing events like this, and being part of a community and of a place where people can gather. So we've had crazy things like one year for Christmas, we had Father Christmas in a massive sledge and 10 reindeer from the Cairngorms visiting for 2 nights and days on the land. So we had one of the schools were doing their mass, and they were sussing out how big, if every reindeer had to have so much space, how big does the enclosure have to be? And they were measuring around the outside of it and then putting up fences. And so the land took about 10 years to recover from those reindeers in the middle of it near the pylon, because this is where all their hoofs were turning the surface of which is a red blazed pitch anyway. And in time, 10 years of leaves falling down and decomposing. And so it's a bit of a sort of an additional coverage, but it is really a red blaze pitch. And that's why we have quite poor soil or poor growth in some ways. Thankfully, our birches and willows are pretty hardy, so they don't mind growing wherever, but they grow very much on the surface. So all of our roots, and many of them are very exposed. So you walk across the land and you see all those roots sticking out and being damaged by footfall. So ideally, we would have to probably put 500 tons of soil right across the whole land to cover all of the roots. So there's a lot of work we should be doing and can do. And I don't know if we manage to do it, now that we realize it is so well used, and the footfall does take away and compacts the ground a lot. So we've invested much more in woodlands maintenance and looking after, and sustainability, biodiversity, looking after the land, because we still want it to be there in 25 years time when our lease runs out. So that's another bit of a headache. So we had to become a bit smarter in terms of woodlands maintenance and looking after nature. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to tell you. Or there's plenty of other things we do and will be doing, and really for you as well, if you are a keen gardener. So if you have any suggestions or any ideas, or have a free on a Tuesday and Wednesday and Friday, our gardeners, Nikki and Christine, are on the land working. So we employ 2 gardeners. Christine is there on a Tuesday and Wednesday from 11 till 3. And she's really sussed, but she does like, other input and people helping her. So people just come, join. It's a drop in and out. There's no obligation, no, set times, no skills involved, or you don't need to bring anything. If you just want to be outside a little bit and be part of the gardening group. It's not even a group, it's just our gardener's there, so you can come and join her. And if you want to do any work with children, we've got my oldest volunteers, Peggy. Again, I'm thinking you might know her, but she is, I think she's 93. She is as absolute fit as a fiddle. She used to come to the old folks' homes we visited. So we invited classes from Donat, from St. Charles, primary school, secondaries, but also preschools, to come and visit the daycare centre in Oran Street. So it's the Oran Street Daycare Centre. We went and visited them. So half the group would stay on the land to play and do outdoor learning or outdoor play, and half the class just to bring down the numbers of or the volume of noisy children all of the sudden swamping that poor group of elderly people. And then we brought something, we brought their artwork, or we picked some leaves and asked them, do you know what these are? Or we brought some balloons you can turn into animals and head things, and then we played with Play-Doh and we colored in, and so we always had a bit of a different agenda every time we went, which was very successful. And we did it once a month, and it of course had to be abandoned with COVID, and also Orange Street moved, so we need to look for a new place really to go and link up with. But the intergenerational thing, as more and more grandchildren are being taken out by their grannies and granddads because the mums and dads are working, we really very much want to support them as well, because sometimes I feel a bit lost in our toddler groups where the mums and dads or carers or nannies come to. So so that's something else we want to branch out into, to go back to the old folks home. But even Peggy, who's 93, volunteered and was very much of support to me in the visiting of the old folks. It's a daycare centre, it's not an old folks home. So so that was brilliant. So don't think you have no skills or no ability, no chance to help me. Anyone can. And we had a World War II project as well, we supported the school with. And again, Peggy came and talked about the war and after the war. And it was just so amazing for the kids to hear somebody, a proper voice, rather than some funny recording from YouTube or something. And they could meet her. And since she's been stopped in the street, she feels a bit like a film star as well. She's been stopped in the street and they say, are you Peggy? And she's like, yeah, that's me. So we try to rope in everyone and all the different skills and all the different ideas. So if you have any, please come and let us know. You can always leave a comment on our website, but we have a Facebook site, which Peggy is very keen in and does a lot of Facebooky stuff. So so Facebook and the website, or just pop over on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. There's always people. Mondays and Thursdays I'm in the primary school, but again there will be other people who can point you in the right direction. So please be part of it. It's really worthwhile, and it's nice. It would be nice to see you there.
Great. Well, I mean, thanks very much, Andrea, for that. You've covered a whole lot of the history and the activities, and I'm sure there'll be people here who'll have ideas about getting involved. And maybe informally we should have a little meetup or a walk group or something coming to the Meadow from the U3A. So I hope you've got a bit of time if there are questions.
Yeah.
I've got a couple already from Heather. Heather, do you want to actually unmute and ask your questions? Or I know you've put them in the chat. I can't see you. Where are you, Heather?
The trouble is, as you know, Peter, from our group meetings, the mic on this isn't very good. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Fine.
Right. Okay, so Andrea, I had a couple of questions, and by way of background, I used to be a trustee and I'm a member of the John Muir Trust.
Yeah.
So I was interested to know if you work with the youngsters at all on John Muir Awards.
Yes, we do. So we work with Hill at High, and every Friday afternoon we used to. So that again has been on hold since the start of it, but they're very keen to continue with it. So yes, on a Friday afternoon I get a group of 10 or 12 kids. I first go into the school and have a little presentation, and there's other people. Heather, do you work for the Botanics or no? No, because there's different people involved. So the Botanical Gardens, the RSPB, the Friends of the River Kelvin, I think, the West End something, and then the school itself. So they have little presentations, tell the children what they can do if they wanted to. So they have to choose one group to go to and join for a block of 6 Friday afternoons for their, don't know what it's called. It used to be golden time, but it's something like that. A period where they have to do John Muir in S1. So I go and tell them a bit about the Children's Wood. Most people, because we have such a strong link to all the local schools, will have been to the meadow. So they are already they feel a bit part of it, which is our aim, to make them feel part of it and to be part of the community, to then learn to like it and look after it as well as enjoy it. So
that leads on to my second question, which was,
yes.
and this is a bit of a rant on my part, so I'll try and stay off that hobby horse. But how do you balance using the outdoors for education and play with protecting the environment? Because I live on the south side, and Pollock Park, the outdoor kindergarten groups there have pretty much trashed the areas of the Northwood that they use. Yes,
I've been in the Northwood with Forest School. So I have friends in the Forest School. They are self-employed and take kids out of school or other places, and you have to run a Forest School session, which is, Forest School is a small group of people, up to 12, and they come over a long period of time into a natural environment like a woodlands, or it could be a beach or anything natural. So to build on experience, to be very child-centered and to experience the outdoors and learn from it rather than learning in a classroom environment. So that's Forest School. And I have worked there to assist friends or people I know from the Forest School sector. And yes, it's absolutely gone downhill. That bit of woodlands is just now kind of almost binnable, isn't it? It's just so overused.
That's a shame, because the park authorities are blaming lockdown for it. But actually the worst trampling and the worst, destruction of the bluebells and the understory is actually, you can photograph, you can tell exactly where the kindergartens meet because of the way it's all flat.
Yeah. So we have so that's, as I said, when we had to campaign, we had to be really forceful and had to be really overdo it, almost just inviting so many schools, working with so many schools, nurseries, to get them on the land, to do outdoor learning. However, we have now, given we have a 25-year lease now, we feel we have to look after it so much more than we used to. So we try to make the local people, our community and our local schools come to the land in a very organized way, rather than having them come and run riot. Because people do arrive, we see people arriving with their mobile phones and their maps on their phones and say, wow, here it is, that must be it, great, we found it. And then they just go rioting, because this is what you can do. Like online, it will say you can have fires, you can do whatever you like, which is not what you can do anywhere. I mean, we have to look after it, we have to manage it. When you walk across the land, you kind of feel like it's a bit of a green space that, just grows green and you don't need to do much on it. But actually, I think every green space has to be managed, and we heavily manage it now. And we've even planted nettles and brambles just to get some stingy stuff where we don't want people to go. So letting kids or anyone run riot is not what we promote or want. So we have very much, not that we want to change it and step back and turn it into, this is now all ours, we don't allow anyone to come, but it has to be sustainable. And we have very much focused on that. So we work with only the most local schools. And if other schools get in touch and say, can we come? We will not say no as a blanket ban, but we'll say, tell us when, and we'll sort out a session for you. So then I might bring my parachute and have a session around the parachute, or play games running around playing tigs, but we won't let them do the Forest School way, where you can actually just get down that tree and turn it into kindling and make bows and arrows and all the rest of it. That you can't do it. You can do it maybe in the middle of nowhere, Highlands of Scotland, but even there, you shouldn't just cut down anything. You should you should leave no trace. So our idea of it is now leave no trace. However, footfall is always going to be coming alongside of what you do. So at the moment, we actually have a bit of a problem with a certain nursery who comes and sets up camp with about 2 or 3 tarps, a toilet, and will kind of just rope off an area they feel is theirs and nobody can get into it. And it's the spaces they used to be in, so we moved them out of them, have been trashed in a very short period of time. In 3 months of them coming every day with only 10 or 16 children, plus 4 adults makes it 20, plus every day from 8:30 until 3:30, will have a massive impact on a tiny microscopic green space we have, which is very, very fragile. So we are much more organized about how we allow people and who we allow to come. We still can't stop people from coming. It's a public space, but we very much promote the fact that there's quite a lot of rules. So don't just have your kids unsupervised running around for 5 hours and trash the place, or climb on the shed roof, or take down the branches of trees and have a fire with it. That's just destructive behavior. That's, yes. So I know the woman. I know the woman who organizes the booking of the North Woods, is it? I know her, and I think they just really, really struggle because there's just not enough green spaces for the demand of classes, groups, schools, nurseries who want to be outside and who are actually encouraged to be outside. So the education department in Glasgow City Council should really do some thinking, because they can't say how this has to be part of the curriculum in every way and every day and every week, but then don't provide or don't look after places like that. Because in 10 years' time, when even more COVID has developed or similar scenarios, and people are meant to and are pushed out of the classrooms, you have to then find an alternative and a way to look after and support it, I feel.
Right. Would anybody else like to make a comment or ask a question? Just unmute yourself or stick a hand up or something, or who's got any total silence all around?
Yes, well, I was just wondering, it's obviously very imaginative. Are there other towns, cities in Scotland that have a similar place?
Yeah.
Or is it a one-off?
I'm sure there are. I'm sure that there must be. We have, I wanted to show you, this is a book, my boss, the director, or she would hate me to say the director of the Children's Wood. So, but it's Emily Katz, who has written a book about our meadow and Children's Wood and the campaigning and the community around it. And it's a nice wee book. It was for sale in the Waterstones in Byers Road. It's really quite sweet, and it's an easy, happy read in so many ways. And it's been circulated, and I'm sure people have read it who have been in a similar situation, or who are and who want to make a difference in their neighborhood. We've got a bit of waste ground. There's so many waste grounds everywhere, particularly in poorer areas of the city, who could so be turned into something more stimulating or greener, or so there are a lot of spaces, and we do go out and try to encourage schools and nurseries to not come to us all the time, because again we need to restrict people coming and going without saying no, but I think we also want them to more regularly use their local green space rather than falling back on us or the only place they want to be or go to. So if they create something that is similar, it would then again serve so many people in their own community. And I think we've visited different gardens and different little initiatives. Often it is rather gardens than a big enough green space to support full classes to come to and to do some outdoor education, or even for a school. But like the Woodlands Community Gardens is a garden that's sitting in the gap site in Woodlands, which it's just, I don't know why there's a house or a flat's missing. Is it from back the war? I don't know, but there's a gap site. Janet, no, I thought you were saying something.
unmute. Yes, there were 2 villas in that gap site, apparently, years ago. And when I read a wee bit about the Community Woodlands Trust there, and they had to do a lot to reclaim the land. It lay empty. You know, they approached the city council and asked if they could then develop gardens for a very built-up area where not a lot of gardens and things. So it took a lot of time to reclaim the land, and tons of soil's been put in. It's an amazing place. I've only visited it recently. Isn't it wonderful?
It's so lovely.
And they have a great trust. You know, they've now got a community hub where they can meet, and it's doing great things. But it's the space, I suppose, when it comes to a woodland. This is why this seems to be quite unique. We visited, we've been there a couple of times with the grandchildren. I was just amazed, this oasis in the middle of the West End, but amongst all the tenements.
So many, there are lots of interesting green spaces around Scotland at the moment, but so much of it's about growing food, vegetables and so on, which is great. And Glasgow City launched its community food strategy 2 days ago, but which is all about encouraging growing. But I mean, it's interesting that you've got so many other things you can do with your land. It's not just about growing plants and vegetables. It's about activity and we're working with generations and giving people things to do. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's a nice, it's sort of hand in hand on our land. It's nice to have the raised beds and the gardening going on, because the kids, like I had a group of the P5s in Dunnard, they came and we did a bit on climate justice, and they did their jobs, but there were a couple of boys who really wanted to go back to the place where we tried so many things and we ate things and we smelled things. And I thought, where was that? And then I remembered, of course, it must be the garden. So I said, yeah, we can go to it. Just finish this activity. So as soon as we were finished, there was 6 boys jumping up and down and following me. And we went and we then picked, and I think previously they came for a food session, which was a separate healthy eating session we had put on years ago. So they came and picked, they were able to try fruit. So there was pineapple and there was blueberries and there was raspberries and there was strawberries, and we blindfolded them and they were trying things out and then picking things. And so this time we didn't have that. And I then realized, and they said, can we just have some strawberries? And I said, well, we're not a supermarket. They're not finished yet. So for kids to understand that it's not a supermarket. A garden is, you plant something and so much later you might, if the slugs and snails had not come, you might be lucky and can harvest things. And they might look a bit dodgier than the perfect ripe apples in the supermarket. But children just aren't in touch with nature or gardening at all. They don't know where things come from. They don't know that a sausage was once alive. So it is just a thing that you buy. Like I used to work in a home or in a house it is called the Brendam House, and it's in Stirlingshire. It has a base in the Gob in Pollock Shields, and they took poor families out into the countryside to have a holiday. So it was often social work related or supported, and we had hens. So we would always go and pick the eggs out of the nests, out of the hen hatch, and took them into the kitchen, and until they realized where these had come from. Like, no way they were going to eat that. That came out of the chickens behind. And I said, where do you think eggs come from? And this is 20 years ago. I'm sure kids don't realize it now. So where do you think they come from? And they said, Asda. and you think, well, yes, but before that, there were quite a lot of hens involved here. So they really don't know. They really don't know. And it would be really good to see people making a difference, because the connection to food and gardening and what you eat these days are so important, really. And to just even point it out, because even with my kids, sometimes I think, what do you think these, where have you been? But then, of course, I might have never discussed that, because to me, it's obvious where an egg comes from or what things are and how they looked before, but they're all packed in plasticky, lying somewhere in a fridge in the supermarket. So gardening for us is brilliant. And even, not even then being able to eat all of that, but even seeing it growing, and we were guessing what was a pear and what was an apple on the tree, because they grow in a real funny, the start of it after the flower, the fruit grows really funny, and they had a laugh about them being upside down. And I said, but don't pick them now. And they're like, what? Why not? So because they're not ripe. You need to hold an apple and twist it slightly. If it falls in your hand, it's ripe and you can eat it. So there's a lot of education. I think education is the best thing. And again, about the land as well, and the use of the land, education. People don't know you shouldn't be over harvesting the woodlands forest floor from, you know, picking all the sticks and having a fire with. They're dead anyway, they think. So they're just lying here. But sometimes our woodlands looks like it's been swept. It's just so completely empty and dead looking, because people take sticks home, or whole classes come with an IKEA bag and put sticks in and take it into their class to make something out of it, which I think it's a lovely idea. But I always try to tell them that that's great, really, but it's really not good for us, because we need dead wood, we need twigs, it needs to be an all-round healthy woodlands and forest. Taking all the sticks away provides nothing for insects or mini beasts or whatever they understand. So, but it's only one bag, and you think one bag every day by a different school means 7 or 5 bags times however many weeks a month, times however many weeks a year is just not sustainable. So people don't, I think they don't, even the smartest, most environmentally friendly people don't think in long term, or don't think how many people actually come to the land every week, and especially have come in the past year. It looked sometimes like Woodstock, like seriously like a massive festival, which in terms of its happiness and how many people we pleased, and were so happy to be outside and meeting their friends outside in the sunshine happily, was great. But we need to catch what they leave behind, or the council doesn't empty our bins. We don't have running water, we don't have electricity. We really struggle to manage even emptying the bins and putting new bin bags in. We buy the bin bags so we bring it to the pavement on on Kelvin Street beside the Scout Hall. And if we're lucky and the right people are on the runs to collect the bin bags, they will collect them. They also sneak in a half an hour of a tea break, which we happily let them have right beside us. So it's a sort of, and we feed them chocolates and bottles of beer sometimes just to keep them sweet. But if we hadn't got them, what would we do with our black bin bags? There's about, I don't know how many, 15 a week or something. So we couldn't take them home or drive them anywhere, or we don't want to drive them anywhere because we don't want to drive anywhere. So really it is a constant. And then we ask people can you take your rubbish home? And they think we've grown 5 heads. Like, what? Why would we take our rubbish home? And we say, please don't put food waste in our bins if you can avoid it, because we attract all sorts of rodents that way. So I think these things are not obvious. Why should they be? You go and put stuff in the bin, and that's great. And yes, it is great rather than dropping it on the ground. But there's always, and my next thought is always dung, 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 dung. It's a sort of domino effect. Where will this lead to? And that's the same thing with sustainability and allowing people and groups to come, because we had so many inquiries about people, can we have our P7 leavers party in the meadow? And I'm thinking, lovely idea. What a shame, I have to say, not a good idea, because there'll be 3 classes of 30 kids, which is 90, plus their mums and dads. And even if it's just a mum or a dad, plus their siblings, you've got 300 people coming to the land for 3-4 hours running riot, because the people are not, the parents will not look after their children every step they do. They want them to have a great time and just enjoy the outdoors and have a barbecue. And so then it's just, it can't work. It doesn't work, unfortunately. So I said, go to Kelvin Park.
Well, we'll endorse that one, but great. Thanks, Andrea. I think we've run out of time and 1 or 2 people are leaving. So just Thank you again for really drawing us in and getting us. I could see lots of smiles and interested faces, and I'm sure people will be going to see you and finding ways to help. I popped the note of the website in the chat, and I've had a quick look, and there's lots of interesting stuff on the website. So have a look at that. This has been recorded, so that will be. You'll get a link probably in newsletters and things if anybody wants to watch again or get a friend to watch. And thank you ever so much, Andrea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Bye,
hope
everybody.
to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
See you soon.